Okay, and if you would remember to pass the friendship pad where you are seated to give everybody a chance to update addresses and to give us a chance to follow up, we appreciate that. The scripture today is found in the Gospel of John in the 20th chapter, verses 19 through 31. On the evening of that first day of the week, when the disciples were together with the doors locked for fear of the Jewish leaders, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." After he said this, he showed them his hands and side. The disciples were overjoyed when they saw the Lord. Again, Jesus said, "Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, I am sending you." And with that, he breathed on them and said, "Receive the Holy Spirit. If you forgive anyone's sins, their sins are forgiven. If you do not forgive them, they are not forgiven." Now Thomas, also known as Didymus, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands, and put my fingers where the nails were, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here. See my hands. Reach out your hand and put them into my side. Stop doubting and believe." Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." Then Jesus told him, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." Jesus performed many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not recorded in this book, but these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. We give God thanks for the reading of his holy words and for the impression and the guidance that they give us. We thank God. Amen. Over the last 2,000 years, Thomas has gotten the nickname what? Doubting Thomas. So y'all passed that part of the test, right? And with that, Thomas is known as doubting because he says, "Unless I see and touch and place my hands, I will not believe." And so oftentimes, we give Thomas a hard time, but also I could see very much a lot of Thomas in me, and perhaps you can identify with Thomas too, that we want physical evidence, we want physical proof that takes us out of the arena of having to live in a faithful position. But Thomas was not with them either, and that's one of the things I guess I challenged Thomas most on is his withdrawing from his supportive community there. But Thomas is a very strong individual who is very outspoken, much as Peter was, but also that he knew what he was willing to do, and that when he was committed, that he was fully committed. And this was a time of him trying to make sense as he would look back over how God has acted, throughout his experience with God, with Jesus. And now that all these things have happened, that he's trying to make sense. And so he retreats from the others. And because of doing that, he misses out on a lot of blessings. But yeah, one of the good things is that when Jesus has appeared in the upper room with the disciples, that they go and say, "Let us tell you what happened," because what we're hearing and what we have seen now, we too can celebrate that Jesus is alive and that he brings us peace. And as Jesus offers that, Thomas says, unless I will not believe. But he went and joined with the others a week later, and Jesus comes. And then Jesus doesn't, pause or anything. He says, here's the proof, here's the evidence that you wanted. And Thomas does exclaim, my Lord and my God, that he was committed. He was committed to Jesus again. And as we would, look into church history, we would see that he is credited to going to India and starting the church there and dying there as a martyr of the faith as well. And so we do celebrate Thomas and his willingness to believe and to be fully committed once he did, commit, that he went and lived out that faith. And that's one of the questions that we may ask ourselves. What is faith? And we have, Faith Sandiford. It's waving at me back there. But besides a person, but faith is more of a verb than it is a noun, isn't it? Of putting it into action. Because that is what faith is. It's something that requires our expression of living out what we believe. And so that becomes a tremendous opportunity for us and a challenge, but we also like to not have to live in that faithful position. We like to have everything taken care of up front so that we know that we'll take care of it, or that it will be taken care of for us. This week I was listening to Love 89 for Caleb. They're doing a telethon to raise up funds for the next year, and one of the callers that had called in to make their donation had said, well, if it's God's will, God will pay the bill. And I, kind of like that, because that was a faithful position of saying, well, there was that commitment there, and that they would trust God would always, help that need to be met there. But what a challenge it is to live in that position of faithfulness. And Thomas, once he did believe and exclaim his allegiance again to the risen Christ, that he did live out that faith. But what is faith? It is action. It is action. And whenever you put that into practice, that we begin to see what God has done, what God is doing. And that's an exciting thing to think about, how God is able to make a difference in and through us. And we celebrate that. And whenever we think about what is faith, we realize it requires exercise, doesn't it? Of exercising that faith in order to put it into practice. One of the things we realize, if we don't use it, it doesn't get stronger, it doesn't get strengthened. And the same thing with faith, that more it is put into practice, more it is utilized, the stronger that it will become. But if you're like me, whenever we do pray, we like to know that that prayer, has been answered quite quickly. If you've ever had a healing that came instantaneously, just like with a click of God's fingers that the healing came, we celebrate that and we rejoice in it. But, most of the time, that healing is one that's in process, that takes time, and a lot more time than our patience sometimes is willing to accept. But nonetheless, that is healing. It is a validated healing. That is one of the things, I guess, I think back, with, as someone was touching base with me that, we had not talked to for a few years, and since around all my knee surgeries, and he had asked, how, that had gone, and I said, well, I said, I've been able to get up and I keep going, and I said, I celebrate that, and I said, it keeps me in a very prayerful position, that I can say, well, Lord, I've got to get to that point, and very prayerfully, I have always gotten there and always gotten back. So I celebrate that. that it is a presence that is there. One of the things I think about is, when I look at people that have issues that they've had to deal with, that they have not let them slow them down at all. When I was at the hospital with John Sheldon the other day, his sister, who is an ICU nurse, is there. And if you did not know, you would never not know that she was a double amputee and worked, those 12-hour shifts and everything else. And, and I has always been very, impressed, with, that determination and the strength to be able to be a lifesaver that Martin Luther is, and how impressive, that so many people are, that with those obstacles that God may give them, that they can still say, if it's God's will, He'll pay the bill and help me get it done. And that's an exciting thing. Thomas, who did say, unless I see, I won't believe. But when he did believe, he declared his faith, my Lord and my God. And he did live out that faith to the point of giving his life. And what a challenge it is for us to hear what God is calling us to do, to challenging us to do. Yesterday at the shower, a minister friend had come and she said, "Now, was this Family Life Center here when you were here before?" I said, "No." I said that, was a work in progress. It was a lot of faithfulness and a lot of hard work and a lot of commitment there. And so I said, that's an exciting thing to think how God is at work. And then in the different missions and ministries that we and other churches continue to be, that we're able to see that. But we also need to keep practicing it, utilizing it, to see the transformation of the world. My heart breaks today as I turned the news on and heard about the shooting in California. And I just think, Lord, your children have got to speak up more. We have got to realize that Christ is the answer, and that we who know Christ have a job to do to share that good news and to use those opportunities that we do have. And a lot of faith it takes sometimes when we say, well, Lord, will I be able to speak what faith is? And I know that God will give us those words to do that. Also, last week my heart was broken again whenever I was hearing one of our surrounding counties talking about needing bigger jails to, house, the people that were in jail. And I just thought, well, the answer is not always just bigger jails, to house more people. That we do have good news, and we do get people that share the gospel with people just in our back door. But also, we need to do that before they get to that point of being able to share what difference Christ has made, that faith being lived out can make a difference. And then part of the other test is this week, when we walk out of these doors, we will be given the chance to bear witness, to share the faith, to live out that faith, of trusting God to give you the words, the action, the love on how to live out that faith that will help people move from a doubtful position to a believing position, from an uncommitted to a committed faith position. And so we have a big job to do, and our homes, our families, our communities, our state, our nation, our world needs to hear the good news of Jesus Christ, so that we can hear that declaration, my Lord and my God. This is the gift that Jesus has given us. He has proven his love to us, and for us to realize that God calls us to share the good news. We all have friends, we all have relatives, we all have acquaintances or associates, we all have neighbors, And as I add that little S on there, we have strangers, those that we don't know, and those that we say, well, those are just some strange people that all need to hear the good news. And our pathways intersect with them. And we have the opportunity of sharing the good news. And yes, we may be uncomfortable, because this week, I found myself in many uncomfortable moments. And I would have to be praying, Lord, give me the words, give me the actions, give me the love. And hopefully I was able to be a presence of Christ. And that is my prayer for us as Jacksboro United Methodist Church, as Christians, that we're able to love and live and see a transformation, that people can be moved into a position of saying, my Lord and my God, that they are willing to put faith into practice. These are God's gifts given to you to give and share to another. Thanks be to God. Amen. As we sing our last song, turning your eyes upon Jesus, may we be mindful that as we do that, He will show us the way. So let us sing, turn your eyes. That you love us with a perfect love, and you've proven that love again and again, and that you come to us with everything that we need to believe. Help us to exclaim, my Lord and my God, and that we will share the good news of you with all people. Go with us. Lord, as we gather for this time of fellowship, we ask that you bless all participants, the food as well. Amen. Amen.